I suppose there was two things. One was the older members of my family all had to emigrate to England to get work, so there was no employment locally. And the other thing was there was no houses for people to stay. And so the idea around getting a house and a job were the main issues that actually would have alerted me to it. And then when the discussions between my own Republican Club and College Land and the Brantry around the squatting, and whenever the squatting had actually happened, the court case that followed that, I had been involved in the picketing of Kelton Courthouse at that particular time. And that led on then within a short time into the actual first civil rights march from Coalisland to Dungannon. But the motivation was really around the need to keep people locally, and how do we actually then develop it into a mass movement of people who want to deliver civil rights. I was involved in the first march from Coalisland to Dungannon. I was a steward in it, and it was a whole new scene for me at that time. The previous time would have been the 1916 celebrations, and then this was the first major mobilisation of people. And I remember that early stages of the stewards coming together in St Patrick's Hall in Coalisland, and then mobilising to get the big number of people out onto the street and trying to encourage as many as possible into it. But thinking on the line of how do we actually create the mass movement of people to actually develop the struggle into a different area. Well, the way primarily that we were going about it was within Republican clubs at that stage, long before any splits, that we were actually discussing how do we mobilise people, how do we get people interested in it. And so discussions within the clubs themselves, but also then the meetings with the ordinary residents in different areas where people had bad housing conditions, no housing, with our 3 and 4 families living in the one house. All them issues trying to actually get people to become active and to start to raise the issues on the ground. I think there was a great atmosphere, and where I lived was sort of between Armagh, Dungannon and Coalisland, so we were around all the different issues. And I remember sitting on the Armagh Civil Rights Committee at the same time as sitting on the Dungannon one, on regards interacting between the different areas, and it was a great motivation. Even that rallying cry, "We shall overcome," where you got everybody involved and everybody singing together. There was a comradeship that actually built up around that there. And that was people from the different political parties at that time, and no political party. And we were coming from a Republican background whatsoever, but others were coming from the old Nationalist Party, Liberals, and people who just had no political affiliation, but who had an interest in the rights of people. And the whole issue was around rights and demanding those rights. Well, it was as though we basically could overcome anything. The mobilisation of people. I remember back, and I think we had massive crowds in the street. Maybe they weren't just as big as we actually think back, and we imagine that we actually had them. But certainly we had the groundswell of people in different areas coming together. And then as you're moving from one march to the other, the Dungannon march was stopped by the RUC. So immediately we were in conflict with the RUC in trying to stop that march. And then the motivation again for getting this bigger crowd to Derry for the 5th of October was a big part of that as well. And I remember taking part in that parade, and the water cannons and the cameras all being washed out of the windows that were taking the photographs. So you got a real resistance starting to build up. And for me, it was that sort of building that resistance that I saw the Civil Rights Campaign, that was mobilising as many people as possible to get them all on the one sort of hymn sheet, and then developing it on into Republican politics as we went along. Well, I think it's still about rights. So unfortunately, 50 years on, we are still demanding rights, and the rights for everyone. The issues might have changed, and did change over the years. At that time, it was one man, one vote, right of a house, and the right of a job. And the fact that the northern state couldn't deliver those very simple demands then pushed ahead into greater demands, and the idea that Irish unity was the only way could actually deliver that. But I think today we actually have the rights of marriage equality and people's rights on the ground, but they're still the same rights, there's still the same demands, there's still the same campaign that everybody should be treated equally. And I think that's where we're now moving to a situation of trying to ensure that people actually recognise. Unions have missed the opportunity that time, because we were talking about the rights for everyone, and they were just looking at it as we were looking at rights for Catholics, rights for Republicans or Nationalists. But really what we were looking for in those early days was rights for everyone, and that a rights-based society could actually deliver what everyone needed.